TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark Savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
All right. I'm here. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. Had a little hiccup there with the audio. I think we're good. You guys in chat, let me know if we're good with this audio while we're rolling forward. So thank you, Chris, for letting me know. Great. Fixed it at the last minute. We're live. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. When we do a live show, you kind of run into these hiccups and all of this kind of stuff. I blame one of my producers, Tave, for setting up Pro Tools on my computer and trying to change the way I record, so it messes with the audio drivers. But anyway, we got a good show planned for you guys today. I got a special guest. I'm excited to get into some conversation today. Hang out with you guys in the chat. Everybody hanging out live with us on YouTube, listening live. What's up to everybody on Facebook as well? We're streaming live there, and as well as everybody hanging out in the Discord chat as well. Welcome to the podcast, and we got a good show planned for you guys. Got to give a huge shout out to everybody supporting my work via Patreon, because this show would not be possible without your help, without your support. So give a quick shout out to some of the newest patrons within the last week or so. Shout out to Kylie Patricia, Melissa Gaudet, Mintaka, Crystal Gan, Jill Trango, and Zeely. Thank you guys for coming on and joining the fold. Thanks so much. And special shout out to some people supporting at the diamond body level. Shout out to Adam Brink. Shout out to Noah. Thank you guys for your generous donations and your continued support. It means the world. If you'd like to support this show, you want more podcasts, you want more music, all that cool stuff, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography, which is 10 plus albums. You get access to exclusive podcast interviews, our Thursday night School of the Mystics that we do. That's the community-based aspect of what we're building here. So hang out with some really cool like-minded people at that, and join the family and support the show. You get access to my music. As soon as I get done with a song, it's uploaded to Patreon, and there's a couple songs over there that are brand new that I've just done within the last month. I just put one up just now before we went live. So there's a new song called Roots. I just now put it up. Go over there, check it out. Let me know what you think. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Thank you guys for the continued support. We're going to jump right into this discussion. I have my guest, Laurel Airica. Laurel, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. And I've somehow lost your image. So let me go back onto the link and regain it.
Great. Yeah, if you click that Zoom, it should pop up. So thank you for coming on and hanging out with me today.
Well, absolutely my pleasure. And my goodness, you have disappeared. It looks like if I switch between this link and the document, I lose you. So now I have to just get on. But while I fiddle around, having already been through challenge with connecting to the internet, while I fiddle around, and I think I'm about to have you, we can talk and I'm all set and I will not switch around then, now that I know I cannot do that safely.
Okay, great. I could see you fine, hear you fine, everything is well.
Great.
I seen one of your videos, the one that went viral. I think Collective Evolution did some edits on it and put a cool video. Went viral. It's got a lot of views on it. So I first seen you there several months ago, probably. Obviously, I'm a poet. I make music and hip hop and stuff as well. So studying the power of words and the power of the English language and things like that, and seeing that video was awesome. So you are a spoken word artist, poet, and so much more. You put it, you painted it in a much more beautiful light than just spoken word artist. So let everybody know kind of what you do, some of the titles that you operate under, and what you bring to the table. Would be awesome.
Well, let me just say, I started my work when I was 3 years old and started exploring all of these hiccups in the English language where words either look at them like themselves in the way that they're spelled. For instance, level is a level word. It's a palindrome front and back. All sorts of things, puns and the symbols of the alphabet. And in the 80s, I wrote a manuscript on it called Psychosemantics, English in Translation. And I was told that without a PhD, I could just forget it. And so a few years later, I wrote a poem while a student of Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith at the Agape International Spiritual Center. Mm-hmm. And it was the first I'd written in many, many years. And back then, early 90s. Anyway, I recited it somewhere, and the founder of a new age record label called Higher Octave asked if I'd like to do an album of my verse. And so so then I realized I could turn everything I'd learned about language into poetry, thereby bypass the academic linguists and just go directly to people. So a friend said to me, "Congratulations on creating your own niche." And I thought, well, what's my niche? And then I thought, I'm the metaphysical mother goose. So I'm spinning new tales about our natural wisdom and beauty and power, as each person is an artist with the spoken word. And we know from the Genesis myth and from the founding principles of every culture and religion that it all begins with words. We're creating out of language. And so I'm the metaphysical mother goose, and I'm looking to help us all create a new story for the live stream.
Awesome. So understanding the power of words, I mean, there's just so many different ways to approach it. Since you mentioned the Genesis myth and story, that would be a great place to start, because when we're talking about words, we're talking about the breath and the power of the spoken word. When it comes to the ancient languages, everybody, like all of like the Christian guys I know, they want to break down the Hebrew, and Hebrew is such a beautiful language, and then the Latin, and then Sanskrit, even just being these old languages. But they kind of look at the English language as it's just kind of like the leftover of all those put together, like it just kind of happened or whatever, when at the end of the day, the English language is a magical language and very powerful in itself. That would be something beautiful to touch on, because, you know, they just kind of, I guess because it's second nature or whatever, first nature, you just know the English language. So when you can break down the power of those words, it just blows your mind. But even the English language. And so I think your work, what you're bringing to the table, helps us to kind of fall in love with our language and our voice even, right?
Well, yes, there's so much in it. And let's see, you asked me some questions before. And so let me, in terms of my elemental connections, and I have felt like an elemental being, someone very much of the alphabet, very literate and very elemental. I have felt like that most of my life, and I felt like an exile from the nature kingdom. And charged with helping humans harmonize our speech so that it becomes as resonant and growth producing as bird song and cricket choirs and whale voices. I believe that as speakers of the word, with the power of the word and the power of life and death on the tips of our tongues, that it is our responsibility to speak in a way that is very harmonious, that resonates with the beauty within every being. And so I performed somewhere at Lee and Carla McCloskey's home, the marvelous artist you're going to be interviewing. And it was a garden party, and I performed, and I asked, what poem shall I do next? And the flock of birds just then flew out of a tree. And I knew they wanted me to share the piece I call Open Heart Synchrony, which is a vision of what happens when the words we speak, it's like one of the lines is, if our words so melt the heart, they start the milk of human kindness flowing, so that every time we speak our mind, we set another flower growing. Then I believe before our very eyes, we human beings, like butterflies, will fully metamorphosize. And as I wrote in one of my pieces, I think it's called Angel Food, words that put wings on our hearts. And it's about words that are unknown, and yet they're obscure English words that can transform our whole sense of our inner beauty and our purpose in the world. So Whitley Strieber's website is unknowncountry.com, and Whitley and his wife Anne gave me a book called The Language of the Birds by William Henry. And it turns out that the language of the birds, also known as the green language and angelish, is the language that puts everyone in harmony with nature. And at my most far out vision of possibilities of what happens when we harmonize speech, I thought I was really going overboard in writing it. It's so ornate and ideal, and it turns out that what I wrote is already in, I believe, the Quran, the idea that we can speak a language that is so beautifying to our hearts and to nature all around us that we absolutely have the power to lift consciousness and the whole frequency of our existence to a higher plane. And so, yes, there's many, many gorgeous, obscure words like omnificent. You I'm sure know omniscient, all-knowing, omnipotent, all-powerful, omnipresent, present everywhere. And the consciousness of the divine is how we conceptualize those three words. The word that also applies to us is, I've never met anyone who knew it, and it's omnificent. And it means possessing full creative power. And we have that power through the power of the word.
That's the beautiful thing, and just what that first word was, or that first vibration, understanding the power, like I said, even of the English language. Some people, they can't get past that. They understand like the majestic languages of biblical Hebrew, or that doesn't exist anymore, those type of things. But when it comes to the English language, we're talking about the power it has performing spells and rites and things like that. Talk a little bit about the spells that we have with the power of our words, that we're casting spells and things, right?
Yes, I will. And something just in terms of the power to name, scientists have called that original spark of creation the Big Bang. And that's a very explosive male vision of what happened. And I wrote a piece years ago called A Modest Goddess Odyssey. And in it, the message for me was, it wasn't a Big Bang, it was a giant jolt of joy. So the power to name influences our perceptions. And just as we live out of our stories, like all of these Genesis myths, there is a story already written in the English language. And we basically are dissuaded from even looking in that direction. When I was growing up, for many years beforehand, there was a saying, and for some people, it's still a current idea that puns are the lowest form of humor. And yet puns are where all the secrets are. When you have words like, I will give you some examples that are favorite ones of mine. The fact that praying sounds so savage, yet it also sounds divine. Or how about the way the prophet has become our bottom line? Now add worship or worship, parish or perish, and it's easy to see why the world's so nightmarish. So people have been ignoring and ignorant as a result all of these echoes and reflections of the consciousness and the culture that reverberate in English. And I can go on, but maybe you want to interject.
No, I love it. Something happens, man, whenever we talk, and it's like, we have that power to create. We have that power to name. We have that power to shift. And that's one thing, like, people want to name something and they feel like they own it because they gave it a name, whether it's a spiritual gifting or ability or something like that. They feel like they are the ones that are privy to the information and understanding.
Well, and there's a metaphor for that, which is they call it giving it a handle and getting a handle on it, as if you can command it just because you've spoken it forth. And we're all kind of like the sorcerer's apprentice. We have this power and no knowledge about how to use it wisely. Mm-hmm. Or how it is using us to propagate ideas that we no longer subscribe to and that we are seeking to evolve beyond. But as we keep repeating them and adding energy and energy impact, so we're resonating vibrationally with each other and sending out this energy out into the world. And so that's why it's so important to become conscious about how words use us and the levels of meaning that are loaded within a single word. Just the word meaning. I have an essay, I don't know by heart, but it's called The Mean Meaning of Mean. And it's about we use it for a definition. And if you'll notice, the word definition has deafen in it. So you're not hearing, you're not being instructed to listen to what you say, but only to watch. So in the mean meaning of mean means definition, but it also means cruel, it means meager, it means average. So our words are constantly bouncing around and reverberating with other layers of intention that have to affect us subliminally. And so becoming conscious of how words are using us and becoming and opening them up like oyster shells, finding pearls of wisdom in some, as well as words that are kind of subverting us. Becoming more conscious of that turns anyone into a philosopher just by playing with words as you get informed by language, and then inspires creativity. Yeah. I have my anthem I call Taking Command of the English Language. And it's about how we can collectively, creatively upgrade English, which is the leading software of the Western mind, so that it can support our conscious evolution from humankind to human kindness.
That's so awesome. We're being affected by these words, whether we know it or not. And that's what we're talking about, like the whole music. We're talking about creating conscious music and being conscious of the lyrics that we're putting out there, and that's what I kind of bring to the table with my music, and what it's doing is people say I just listen to the beat. They just want to hear the music because they like the beat, but they don't pay attention to the words that are being spoken over them, and they think that it's just I don't really care for the lyrics, I just love the beat. But whenever these words are being spoken, even when it's given the rhythm as well, when it's matched with the music, it even almost like intensifies it as well, to be able to be, I guess, played over in your head over and over like a mantra. These lyrics start coming up when you don't want them to, especially if they're like bad lyrics and stuff. That's the majority of the stuff that's on the radio today, you know?
Well, scientists in Russia are pairing linguists with geneticists and using words to alter DNA. So if you think you're not affected by the words you hear, think again. And something else that occurred to me as you were talking about listening to the beat, I once was walking along in beauty, in nature, realizing that there's a flicker frequency to everything. There's the night and day is a flicker frequency. There is just vibration is a flicker frequency. And it occurred to me that it must be possible to so orchestrate light and sound so that as you or I, as we are delivering our work, there is a story being told, but there's also a flicker frequency that can awaken soul identity memories. The intellect is out of the way because it's occupied on the message, but the soul recognizes the frequency of divine truth and feels strengthened and reinforced and invited to presence itself more fully in the physical human instrument.
That's beautiful when you create music or a poem and you're conscious of that when you do it. I know you are with your words, and I get that feeling when I listen to your poetry, especially when you're going into some of the like majestic, spiritual, magical realms. You know, as far as I guess we would call fantasy to some people if they've never seen it, right? Fantasy, and you got me thinking about these words, fantasy, a fantasy. Like I would love to explore these realms of magic and some of the things of lore as far as like fantasy music. Somebody actually called my music years ago. They said, I love the fact that you do fantasy rap. And I'm like, it's not really, you know, I don't call it that. That was the first time I've ever heard it called that. But when I listen to your music, it takes me to another place. It opens up a new world. It's like a portal. And it's the same thing with my music. I'm getting these messages from people. It's changing their lives. It's opening up doors and new ideas and concepts that are radically changing their life for the better. And when I create the music, put the words in there, like there's an intention behind the word that you want this to happen when you create it, and on the other side it does. And I think it's the same way for your poetry and your spoken word and stuff as well.
Well, thank you very much. And I completely agree with your work. I think it is divine and sublime and inspired from such a high frequency of consciousness. I think it's absolutely magnificent and majestic. And I'm a great fan now. And I really like the word fantasy, and that you were looking to see what else would be in that word. And so, and everything sparks more for me. So, so I think about the sea of consciousness, the global sea of consciousness, and I spell it SEE, which is vision. It's how consciousness is directed. What is the vision we are looking toward, individually and collectively? So when you talk about a fantasy, to me, it's about someone who's looking to see a vision that exceeds where we are. So back, not just exceeds, but is in a whole other realm of a higher frequency of possibility, turned into our shared reality. So I mentioned nursery rhymes a bit ago, and we're all, probably all of us, taught. It's even the word taught. I was going to say taught, row your boat, and taught, T-A-U-T, means tense. So hard to learn without being tense. But in any case, we're all taught that life is but a dream. And there's the term life's dream and the term life's dream. And you can't hear a difference, because I don't believe there is one. And I believe that our work together, everyone listening, everyone interested, is to become a metaphor teller of the vision for reality, for our shared experience that each one is seeking to have. And intention is so powerful. It's putting a vibration, a very directed vibration into the web of life, creating a tension that then finds like an arrow to a target, finds its goal, even if the archer wobbles after the arrow is released.
Beautiful. The ancient mantra, like the magical mantra, abracadabra, means I create it as I speak it. The magician would, perform the rite and then abracadabra, pull the rabbit out the hat or whatever he was about to perform. I create it as I speak. I create as I speak. Understanding that, like, with fantasy or with these other realities, or we're able to go up into higher consciousness and pull things out and bring them down to a level that people can understand it, that it invades their reality in a beautiful way. What is, like, the link there with creation? Is it just like we're creating everything as we speak it? Because, like, as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. But when we confess it, when we, like, if we have these thoughts or these ideas, or we read them in a book, when we begin to talk about it, it creates it and it brings it into our reality, whether it didn't exist before or everything exists. And if you focus on it, then you have the power to bring it down and slow it down, bring it into time. Where does it come with, from, with, like, going into these other magical realms and grabbing someone's hand and kind of bringing them with us when we create a piece like that?
Well, all I can do is, as you have done, the conjecture. How is reality put together? How is it put together with words and with intentions? Abraham Hicks is a really good source of that kind of information. I can only say, in response to your question, not having contemplated it previously, but just the sense that all possibilities exist and we have free will. So, it's like, I think I'll take that. And according to Abraham, all you have to do is have the desire in your heart, and you've already created it. And then it's a matter of coming into alignment with the frequency, with the plane on which it exists. And so when we're putting out what people call trash talk, negative messages, againstnesses, all that ugliness, my goodness, that's waiting for you. You'll meet it up ahead down the road, if sooner or later. So I like the idea of speaking beauty, because beauty and truth are synonymous.
That's the beautiful thing, is, like, being able to tap into those realms. Because, like, now I don't know how many experiences you've had, but I know we both have work out there about the elementals, and you have a lot of stuff about the fairies and things like that. Is, like, where do you approach that from? Is it in a realm of fantasy, or have you had, like, spiritual encounters and you can invite other people into that encounter with that kingdom by writing the poem and doing the spoken word? Because you definitely have the power to invite people in with you, definitely. But where does the inspiration come from on, like, a spiritual level?
Well, I can only say, I've once wondered myself, sometime in my 30s, I thought, did I think I was an elemental when I was a child, or is this something that came to me later? And I don't really know, but I know I come from another dimension. And I have felt like a human being from the plant family, more plant than human, which is why I think the direction I've been given has been about creating consciousness around words and inspiring people to get very creative with language and to be able to create beautiful new words, metaphors, and phrases that can inspire higher consciousness. So in terms of my relationship to the plant kingdom, I wish I have not yet seen an elemental, but I do feel like an elemental. And I also have felt, strange as it was, since childhood, somewhat, like an incarnation of the moon. Now, what exactly that means, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I do have some things that sort of relate to that. So where else would you like to go with this?
I'm asking this because I'm genuinely, genuinely curious, especially because, like, it just it invokes awe and wonder and creativity. You know, you hear a song about it. Maybe somebody will try to get in touch with that kingdom. You know what I'm saying? I've listened to a lot of stuff by like Manly P. Hall, and just listening to stuff and getting intrigued by it, and then spending time in meditation and just connecting. But just like the whole nature kingdom itself, and how we are one with it, and it's beautiful. So as far as spiritual encounters and stuff, because like I said, you create that, like with your work, your poems and everything. But as far as having a spiritual encounter, whether it's with a divine being or having something like that, have you ever had an encounter, like otherworldly encounter with some type of being like that?
No, I haven't. I've certainly asked for it. And in writing my verse, I mean, many years ago, I read that Archangel Uriel is the archangel of language and culture. And so before writing my verse, I would get up at 4 every morning and write for a couple of hours before going to a silly job. And so I would ask Archangel Uriel for inspiration, and I would invite in other mystic masters, lovers of God who are masters with the word, and so create from there. And in one of my poems called Word Fire, because someone once asked, what is it you want to do with your words? And I said, I want to set the fire on page before I could think. And so I have a piece on Word Fire, and I talk about Archangel Uriel conferring this Kabbalah of English that I Yoabla. And so decades later, I learned that Uriel was considered responsible for the Hebrew Kabbalah. So I do believe that I have support around me. I do hear messages that go into my verse. I have not actually had a vision with a figure, an illustrious divine figure in front of me. So how about you?
I have.
Tell me.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it. I don't want to, I'm just curious. I'm picking your brain right now.
Okay.
I've definitely had encounters, but like I said, like that's the thing. Cause like, and so I'll preface it by saying this, there's people who do, the type of music that I do, and they get ancient knowledge, Manly P. Hall stuff, Jordan Maxwell, Michael Tsarian, all of these, even stuff from like Abraham Hicks, and they put it within their music, and it creates that spark of awe and wonder. And I've had them on the podcast, and I've called in their interviews to talk to these guys who create music. And when I would ask them about like meditation or angels or whatever, because I'm having these encounters, and I would ask them, and they're just repeating things they've heard. It wasn't like coming from like this encounter. And I feel like just the way you share that, some things, man, that you know some stuff about the fairy kingdom or whatever, not like it's just in the land of make-believe, but that it's something that really exists.
Well, it does feel that way. And years ago I was receiving body work, and I felt like it was touching that I had a fairy village living inside me. There was only one friend at the time I could confess that to. And sometime after that, I received an invitation to a conference. And one of the seminars in the conference was about getting in touch with the micro angels in your body. So I certainly felt them before I knew such a thing existed. So it's been more an intuitive, elemental knowledge rather than a full-on visitation.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here. Someone in the chat wants to know, I guess since we're talking about the plants and we're talking about nature and elementals and stuff, they wanted to know if you've ever heard plants speak.
Yeah, well, I have. I wrote a couple of articles, and I would like to hear what the individual asking what her, or I assume,
yes,
or his experience was. But I wrote a couple of articles called Reading Tree Leaves, because I worked at the first psychic hotline in LA in 1995. And because I read intuitively, it was feeling uncomfortable to be experiencing the caller's energies personally. So I created distance and I started looking at plants out the window. So I started reading tree leaves. And I wrote a couple of articles called Reading Tree Leaves. I'm not sure if I have them available online at the moment or not. And in it, I share how I would use the plants to give me information about the client, like you would use a tarot deck. And the most dramatic instance of that was when I was doing a reading in my home. I had a lot of potted plants, and I would ask them for information about the client. And one little plant, I felt it very agitated, and it said, "Tell her to turn the sprinklers on for the birds." Excuse me, turn the sprinklers on for the birds. And I thought, I can't say that. And I mean, it was relevant to nothing. And so I thought I was misreading, but the plant kept insisting. So finally, I said, this plant wants you to turn the sprinklers on for the birds. So she called me, and I said, do you even have a yard? And she said, well, I live in a triplex and there is a large backyard. So the next evening she called me and she said, well, I went to look for the sprinklers in the garage to turn them on for the birds. And I thought, you even listened to that? You took that seriously? Because I didn't. In any case, she said she saw that the lawn had just been watered. She then, in the garage, found the rotating sprinkler and thought the birds would rather have a fountain. So she was looking around for the fountain and saw something glittering behind the tire of her car. So she walked over and picked it up, and it turned out to be her grandmother's diamond engagement ring. And wow. That had gone missing from her jewelry box 6 months before, and she would have crushed it next time she drove out.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. There's a scripture, Job 12:7. It's a beautiful scripture. It says, but ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds of the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. Talks about
so gorgeous.
Just like communing with the animals and with the elements and things like that. And that's,
absolutely,
whenever, we access higher states of consciousness, like those are the things that, God speaks to you. The divine essence speaks to you through everything, every situation, yes. The animals, your friends, your enemies, like everything around you, the television. It's really interesting if we're able to hear that voice of God and interpret it and then capture it into a song or slow it down into a poem or something like that in a way that other people can experience. And that's the beautiful thing about the song and dance with the divine and slowing it down. Everything's just so fast, and be able to get that information or write down those words that are just playing over and over in your head, write them down and then start building on top of it and stuff like that to kind of make a song or a poem.
Absolutely.
As well.
And when in my poem Word Fire, I say I learned to catch phrases as they float on by in ethereal blazes that drift through the sky. And I find you have to catch it in the moment and then put it on the page. And that's when it stays alive. If you let it drift away and then write it down afterwards, it's a paraphrase and it doesn't have the same life force.
Yep. That's awesome. Catch a phrase, right? Being able to catch a phrase. You like, there's been times where I'll wake up in the morning and there's just something's over and over in my head, just out of the dream state. I'm writing it down. I'll get right in the booth, right out of bed, and just lay it down, see how it sounds over a song.
Good for you. That's exciting.
It's usually just these little bitty pieces of stuff, and people will ask, do you channel the music? Like, I don't do ritual to channel it, but it's coming from somewhere else. Whether it's coming from within or without, or we're just influenced by the just something that we've come up with. I'm like you. I feel like it's being communicated or shared with us, especially for me. Like, as time goes on and I'm able to look back at it, or I may not feel as spiritual or whatever as I did when I wrote it. It acts as a time machine and takes you back to that place. But it's like, man, who wrote that? There's no way I wrote that. There's no way I wrote that. It's so beautiful. And then even your words or your music is able to minister to you. Like the same thing that other people are feeling when they hear your music, you can put it on and just like, oh man, this takes me to this place. This is something else, you know?
Well, your work is gorgeous, and the way you explain that is so beautiful and precise and accurate in my experience.
Awesome. So talk a little bit about, because I know we've been mentioning it, but you have that that video on the English language and about words putting actual spells on you, and some of the same words that people would use in some type of craft, you know, are the same words that we're using in the English language when we speak or when we write things down in cursive.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
Well, the video that went viral because it was placed on the Facebook page of Collective Evolution is called The Secret Spells of the English Language. I found that there's a couple of other people on YouTube who then used the title and some of the material, but the essence of this life sentence is that it comes down to the phrase of we awake each morning and go off during the weekdays to earn our living at various jobs and undertakings until we come to the weekend. And I point out that what I do is a translation of the English language. And I spell that Trance, with the idea that words cast spells. So when you translate that life sentence, you remember that awake is a funeral party for the dead, that mourning is the state you're in when you attend a wake. So when we say good morning to each other on another level, we're saying good grief. So it's a very dark way to start the day. Then we stagger off in a weekdays to earn our living, since urns are only for the ashes of the dead. We call our jobs undertakings. Job itself is a Hebrew word for persecuted, as in Job. We rush to meet deadlines instead of lifelines. And what we get at the end of this perverse bargain with life is weakened. We get progressively weakened. And over a 10-year period, we call it a decade, and the British call it a decade. And our greeting to each other is not namaste, I honor the God within you. It's hello. And if you reverse the syllables, it's almost like wake up, hello. You reverse the syllables and you have oh hell. So a lot of times when people see this life sentence, and there's one for children as well that I have, the life sentence leaves people feeling like someone did this to us. And no doubt there was intentional manipulation of the language, since language is the instrument of hypnosis. And it's used by politicians and by corporations to put people in spells. And I point out that the word already has a spell within it. And so the point then is to break the spell and to get free, and not to look to blame someone else for being responsible, though I'm sure there were many actors. But the fact is, what can we do with it now? And also, I believe, I think of language not only as grammatical, but hologrammatical, so that it's multidimensional, it's echoing and reflecting. It's like we're not just in a hall of mirrors, but we're also in an echo chamber. So we're bombarded with visuals when it's written and audio when it's spoken that is reverberating and creating all sorts of impact on our lives. I just wrote a piece about changing the terms of agreement. The idea that we call it a nervous system instead of our electromagnetic communication network. I mean, it changes everything the way we speak of things. So the point is then that language is software, that English is the leading software of the Western mind. It's, according to William Henry, mythologist, it is the language of the birds, and it is something we are meant to recreate at a higher frequency collectively. And if it isn't already up on my website, there will be soon a chat room where people can suggest words and suggest phrases. And in my anthem, Taking Command of the English Language, I refer back to that phrase, random acts of kindness and whatever thoughts of, acts of beauty that change people's behavior all over the world. So we are at this nexus point of do or die. And everybody's consciousness is being called forth. We have all of these large actors on the stage, but we so outnumber them. And the power of the word is so much greater than the power of the sword and will endure. And so this is our time to lift our frequency and speak with beauty and start evolving the language. And when it occurred to me after I had discovered that life sentence or put it together like puzzle pieces, I realized that there was a big so what in my mind. What an interesting so what this is. And then I got that the so what was about evolving language and we upgrade software. And so I just lost my thread, and I will catch it in a moment, or maybe it's your turn to interject.
Yeah, no, it's good. I could just keep listening. Couple questions I got here. So, when did you put that piece out? When was that recorded and put out to the public? The piece about the English language and the spells.
Okay, I'll let you know in just a moment. What I was going to say was that far out idea of upgrading language, I learned shortly after, was also Confucius's idea. He said if given charge of the governance of a country, the first thing he would do would be to correct language. There's all sorts of other people, and most currently, I guess, and prominently is Terence McKenna, who talked about we're in this linguistic construct, and if you can see the words that the world is made of, you can make something else of it. So that life sentence, I guess, came complete in the early 90s. And I believed I'm not quite sure the date when I made those videos, whether it was 2000, probably 2010 or 11.
So was that original from you, or was you inspired by someone else's work that already had something out? Because I know, Jordan Maxwell is where I've heard similar things to that. I don't know if he was influenced by your work or vice versa.
Someone mentioned Jordan Maxwell, and then I went online and I listened to his work. I had not encountered him before. I haven't met anyone who does what I do. And when I have met someone who's become obsessed with some aspect of English, as I have, it's always been a different slice of the pie. So the only thing I heard with Jordan Maxwell was something about language of the sea, whatever it is.
Maritime Admiralty stuff.
Right. So I'm about language of the sea too, but it's about the vision, the SEE of language.
Yeah, he I know one thing he talks about is like the English language, and whenever we write, when you perform, a spell, when we spell words, and then we perform a magical rite when we write a sentence, and we write it in cursive, and all of these different things that kind of go back to the power of words performing spells as you're writing them down. And
I didn't hear this before, but cursive.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
I hadn't heard that, the curse in cursive before.
Spelling, writing, doing a magical rite.
Absolutely. Well, even our whole justice system, just us. We book people, we sentence them to a term. It's all about language, and then maybe they get parole, which is a statement by the prisoner to the bench, and it's the spoken word in French. Yeah. So the power is all in the word. That's why it's in our just us system.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. So talking about the power of words, and we have this power, and abracadabra, we create it as we speak it. Like, do we have the power to create our future? Is that something? Because as far as like the law of attraction, and I think it's one thing for us just to visualize something, but I do think that we birth it as we speak it. Like, we can have these awesome ideas and things like that, but once we speak it, I think we begin to plant seeds and tell people and almost create our future that we want. Because everyone has the dream. Everyone has this childlike faith in this thing they wanted to be when they was a kid, but it kind of got away from them. My whole journey has been to kind of go back and bring it, recapture the dream and be able to bring it back into this reality. And I've used the power of the spoken word to do that, and understanding who I am and things like that. Not something that I'm going to be one day, but something that I already am, and that we just have to manifest it. So if somebody wants to create their future or do what they love for a living, can they use words to do that?
So funny you should ask, because that's exactly what I am aiming to do. So I edit books for people, usually people, novels and nonfiction, people who are dealing with consciousness and putting out a positive message. My intention and my desire are to create my living anew on a higher frequency, able to focus on my own work exclusively, except where I want to be of service to others in a different way. So that's my journey, and that's what I'm seeking to demonstrate in my life. And so you were the one to inspire me to reactivate my Patreon account. And I have begun to do that. I will be putting in more levels of donation and reciprocation today. And then so that's what, yes, I do believe more and more of us, and you are absolutely showing the way, can take our divine avocation, meaning hobby, and turn it into a vocation and a vocalization that goes out in the world and inspires and uplifts, no matter what form it takes.
Awesome. There would be people who would see your work or see my work, and I remember, man, like putting out music, and I'm some people's favorite rapper. Like, as far as the history of rappers is concerned, I don't know if however it goes, but I get messages, hey, you're my favorite rapper, that. And at the time I was getting these messages, I was a full-time truck driver, and it almost killed the magic for them to know that their favorite rapper was a delivery driver to keep the lights on, right? But when you see the videos, how well they're done, the music and what we're bringing to the table, and you get to see all of this beautiful stuff, you get to see what we want to show you with the internet, right? It would almost kind of kill the magic when they find out that their favorite rapper is a truck driver, or your favorite this is that, or whatever the case is, right? And it kills the magic a little bit. But I would see you were on TED Talks, you've got videos that have gone viral, you have amazing websites and all of this stuff. So people just kind of like automatically assume that you're successful and you're making lots of money with your art, and you're doing interviews and podcasts and stuff like that. They automatically assume that, but that's not the case always, right?
Well, thank you for saying that. And no, it has not been the case. The human side of my journey here has been rather more arduous than I would have liked, but it is also, I guess that's true of most of us. In any case, I am the age I am, and I am looking to regain my wings so that I can lift into a greater frequency of creativity and put out more work in the world. I have an enormous body of work that I did cloistered away with no intention really of sharing it. And I'm looking to get that work out as more videos of a higher quality, and also books and such. And I would really so appreciate anyone who is moved by this work to become a supporter, contributor. I assure you, you will be recognized and deeply appreciated, and toward the goal of liberating my time to focus on my own work. So I'm the age I am. I've been at this for decades, and I don't know how long, it's like I intend to live another 30 years, but I can't be guaranteed. And I would like to share the gifts that I have more fully and completely for posterity.
Definitely. Patreon is a really good way for artists and creators to kind of make a living doing what they love for a living, especially when you have something that you're bringing to the table that there's a need for. I found that with mine, with my podcast and with the music and stuff, that people love to support, and there's people who are able to support at higher levels than other, but just anything helps, right? And so I think that your Patreon is going to blow up. I prophesy that over you now, that your Patreon is going to be awesome. You're going to have more than enough than you need. You're going to be able to do everything that you've ever dreamed of. You're going to be able to do alongside and with Patreon. And I'm going to sign up and be a patron as soon as we get off of here. So go ahead and you can go ahead and plug it now so that those people can join me and head on over there and be patrons as well.
Thank you so much. So I will complete the various tiers for levels of kind contribution in the next few minutes. And then please do join. Go on to patreon.com/wordmagicglobal.
Word Magic Global. So what are some of the ideas for the tiers that you have, just so we can, before we head over there, what are some of the cool ideas that you have?
Thank you. Well, my fairyography about an elemental being who goes through the looking glass into this dimension and has to deconstruct the language to find her way back home again. It is a very lengthy piece with lots of fun, beauty, and magic in it. I would like to publish it chapter by chapter, illustrated, making it available to Patreon contributors first and foremost before publishing it in hard copy. So that takes a little income to do. I also have a book called We Do Come with Instructions, the ABCs of self-realization and inner conscious gnosis. So this is about the philosophy in wordplay, and it's little brief aphorisms. I'm going to be sharing that with people. The lengthy autobiographical poem I have, which is a description of creation, my own as well as my vision of the larger, I'm making that available. That's called first person singular. So I have a large body of work that I'm going to be sharing with patrons, and their patronage will allow me to publish it in ways that are beautiful and uplifting.
Heck yeah. I'm going to head over there and join. So really cool stuff that you got going on. And we'll say this too. We've been talking about doing a song together, doing a feature, yes, a collaboration, and maybe that would be on Patreon as well, Patreon exclusive. I'm going to have Laurel, Airica on a song with me, so we're in talks with that. So head on over to her Patreon. I'm going to go sign up right after this, and okay. I invite everyone, no matter when you're listening to this, because there's no time limit on these podcasts. Like some of the popular podcasts I've done like 4 years ago, you know what I'm saying? So, and they're still relevant. So wherever you are listening to this, it transcends time. Head on over to her Patreon page, because I'm sure it's gonna still be popping. So yeah, that's everything that I had written down to talk about. You were on TED Talks. Just talk a little bit about it. Was a
TEDx talk.
TEDx. Talk yes. a little bit about your experience with that, because that was really cool.
Thank you so much. That was I shared 9 obscure words that reveal the whole purpose of life. And so I shared one of the words with you, which is omnificent, meaning possessing full creative power. I also shared the word theodicy. And I found that word once when I was trying to rhyme the phrase the Odyssey. And I kept going in my head, the Odyssey, the Odyssey, the Odyssey, theodicy, theodicy. It has to be a word. And I looked it up, and it is.
Yeah.
And it means vindication of the goodness of God in relation to the existence of evil. And so what I take that to mean is like a lyric in a song at the Agape Church. God is more than this. And it lists all these things, the birth of a child, the death of a loved one, all of these huge experiences in our lives, that the divine is so much more than that. And I feel like the theodicy is the purpose of the odyssey all of us undertake when we enter this dimension, which is a journey that we take for greater, deeper learning, also beset with enormous challenges, because that is the catalyst for evolution. And so I look to myself at the theodicy, that proof in my life to have overcome my background to be here today talking with you. That's how I've become who I am. So theodicy is all of our odyssey to show that who we are in spirit is greater than anything life could throw at us.
Amen. I agree with it. Thank you so much for coming on, hanging out with me. It's such a pleasure to have you, and it's such a pleasure to have your friendship as well. I really do feel a kindred connection with you, and I'm happy to work with you in the future, my friend.
Me too, you. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Derek, are we off air?
Not yet.
Okay, call me after.
Gotcha. We'll do it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Laurel, Airica, ladies and gentlemen, I really do feel a kindred connection with her, man. Her love for words. I've never talked to someone who has like a love for rhyming in words and coming up with these creative words as well. And that's what it's kind of hard sometimes. Like I said, how many times can I rhyme mantra, chakra, you know what I'm saying? Like all of these words that I'm doing, I'm trying to be innovative. And then I listen to some of her poetry, and then like some of these words that I've kind of dug deep to rhyme over the years, she's got poetry and stuff and spoken word using these same words, and then she's coming up with some cool stuff as well that I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have to use that in a song, man. She has some really cool stuff, man. So like I said, we're in talks about doing some music together soon as well. She's had a couple people wanting her to put her stuff to a hip hop beat and do some hip hop music, and that's what I do. So we're gonna make it happen, and it's gonna be really awesome. I love her work, man. The power of words. Abracadabra as I disarm and dismantle and handle negative entities with my positive energy. When I'm flowing, they feeling me because it's showing no sympathy. For the power is filling me with the sound of a symphony. Now's the hour that I'm going to be infiltrating the infantry. Come on. Something. I don't even remember all that stuff. I've written so much stuff at this point. I don't even remember all of my words. It's crazy. But yeah, man. New music. I'm still doing it. It's over on Patreon, putting out new stuff. I'm working on a new album right now called Colors. It's going to be based off of the chakra system. It's going to be like influenced off of it. It's not going to be about the chakras, but it's going to be influenced off of each song. Each song's going to be based off of a chakra. So there's 2 of them already up right now. If you want to go download those, there'll be another one up probably within a day or 2. I'm almost done with another one. So working hard at that. Got some concerts coming up here in the distant future. That's going to be good as well. And yeah, create it, man. Speak it. It's awesome. Like it's weird, man. You have this notion, like I said, man, people, they see me. This is a long time ago. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. They think that like you're successful and you're making all this money and you're touring and you all this stuff. He's like, man, we're like, you know, I work a full-time job as a truck driver and stuff. And so my friend, the voice, he told me not to tell people I was a truck driver. Yeah, don't tell them you're a truck driver, bro. That kind of kills the magic for him. And, you know, he told me not to tell people. And it's like, you want me to lie to people? Like, I have a podcast and I'm open, and that's what it's about. So just being open about your story. And obviously the story has evolved, and I'm doing this full-time now, thanks to Patreon supporters, thanks to the podcast, all of that stuff. It enables us to move forward, and I have to return that favor. We see someone like Laurel, Airica. She does huge lectures. She's done TEDx talks, awesome videos that went viral. Like, I think that video on Facebook on Collective Evolution, I think that's got millions of views, at least 1 million views. So you would see that and you'd be like, man, she doesn't need any money. She's set. She's good. But at the end of the day, like, you know, she's helping other people create their work and editing books and doing all this stuff for her. And it takes away her getting her work out and her inspiration, which needs to be put out, because her work is amazing. It's crazy to like be listening to her stuff and then see just they kind of go together, man. I listened to her stuff about the fairies and elementals, and I was like, hey, check out my song. I did one about fairies and elementals, you know what I'm saying? And she fell in love with the visuals and everything. So it was really cool. We've been corresponding back and forth over the last couple weeks via telephone and email, and I really feel a connection with that lady, man. Y'all please go support her. It would be definitely worth it, and I'm going to do it as well. So looks can be deceiving, right? You perform and you walk in a level of integrity and a level of excellence, and there's a a plumb line that you set with quality as well, right? Quality podcast, quality video, quality lights, all of this stuff. And it kind of gives the illusion that everything's okay and you don't need anything. You don't need any money, or you don't need support, or whatever the case is. I didn't think she did. You know what I'm saying? Because I seen, that's just the illusion. You know, she's set. She's talking on TEDx and doing lectures and got audio books and all kind of like stuff you could download. You think that they're set. But not without your support, they're not set, right? And that's for myself. That's for a lot of my friends who were pursuing this type of work and doing full-time, I guess you would say full-time entrepreneurs, right? Bringing something to the table and trying to go full-time off of it. Bunch of friends, everybody. And we all encourage one another. We try to support one another. That's what it's about. Especially if you want support, and you guys hear me say this over and over. You want support, you're asking for support, but you don't support anybody. And you're mad and you don't understand why, man, I try to put this out there into the world and nobody supports it. You never supported anybody. And when she says, like, whatever you're putting out there, whatever you're creating, it's going to come back. The things you're saying, the things you're speaking over yourself, it's like a slingshot. It's going to come back. So if you want help, find somebody to help. You want support, find somebody to support. You want encouraging words, find somebody to encourage. I believe in it. You reap what you sow. It's part of it. Teamwork makes the dream work, man. To think that you can do everything on your own, you're deceived. You really are. You can get to a certain level, but you're going to reach a ceiling. You're going to plateau out. You have to create a team. You have to. You can get a lot done, but in those 24 hours, you're going to be limited, and you can have other people working on things with you. And whether you're building something and you're delegating work to other people, and people have strengths, man, and people want to be involved. People want to help. Even financially, let's be honest. Even financially, there's people who, like, their gifting and their calling, like, is to support and fund people out there who are out there doing the work. Like, over the years, I've had amazing people come into my life who believe in my vision, and they say, look, I can't do what you're doing. I'm this, I'm that, but I can support it, and I can fund it, and I can help you because I believe in your work. And there's people who that's their ministry, is to help and support. The ministry of helps. I believe it, man. Comments here. Ali says, what you guys do is not for the faint-hearted. We love you, bro. Bless you and everyone who supports your family while you live in your calling. Amen. Adam Starseed says, I'll have to go rewatch. How is everyone? What's up, Adam? Love you, brother. He said we have to build and work together. No doubt, man. Family is what it's about. It's about building. It's about growing, and creating something beautiful. I don't think there's a law against it. I really do believe that the universe conspires with you. I believe that God works with you. If you're creating something beautiful, I see the connection, because we're little creators. We're little gods, if you will. Some people get mad at that term, but I really do feel like we're created in the image and likeness of our Father, who was a creator. And so we have that ability to create within us as well. Even, something out of nothing. We can't, we create, this podcast didn't exist. My music didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So many things that we've created, ideas, symbols, logos, like videos, webinars, whatever you're creating, whatever you're building, didn't exist until you blew into it. You blew that life essence into it, and you're made in the image and likeness of a creator. I really do feel, I've been talking about this a lot, it just blows me away. I really do feel like that God is honored when we create something that didn't exist. And yeah, so thank you guys for helping me create this new music. I was done several years ago. I thought my last album, 2015, I thought that 333 was going to be my last album. Couldn't afford it, couldn't pay for the beats, couldn't pay for videos and all that kind of stuff. I tried to do as much as I could, but it was just felt like in the end it's kind of like working against myself. But people wanted it. People joined with me, partnered with me, and they wanted another album. They wanted this, they wanted that. So you know what? We came together, and I'm able to do it now through Patreon, through the support, through partnering with you guys. And essentially, like, it wouldn't exist. I have people that get mad at me. I had a dude, he got mad at me. He was like, bro, you shouldn't say that. You make people feel like marginalized if they don't support you or whatever. But I would be lying to you to say that this last album and even this new stuff moving forward and the podcast, as many episodes and this conversation, like, wouldn't exist without your help. It literally wouldn't. So I am grateful, man. I really am, moving forward. And I thank you guys for believing in me, believing in my vision, believing in the music. I believe in you. Let's link together. Let's build this thing. Create it as you speak it. Bless it. I hope that you're really pulling something out of these interviews, something out of these conversations. I know I am. Like, I love the interviews that I get to do, that I'm like, that I genuinely want to ask these people questions and get these people on the show. And I always take something away from every episode. And so I hope you are too. I hope you're not just an armchair spectator. You're not just watching. I hope you're like taking this stuff and bringing it to the table and creating it and whatever life that you want for yourself. I think that everybody, I literally think that everybody should be doing and can be doing what they want for a living, whatever that looks like. I mean, there's so many things against you, but hey, if God is for you, who can be against you at the end of the day? If God be for you, who can be against you? So don't get with me. Don't get with Laurel. Don't get with nobody. Get with God. Find out what God would have you to do, your creator, your father, the lover of your soul. Get with that entity, that creative power, expression that created all of this stuff. It wouldn't exist. He's the first creator. Would never have existed unless it was slowed down into time and come into this reality. Get with that person first. Get with God. Find out what God would have you to do. Get on this team. Don't work against God. Some of y'all out there working against God. And then many of you guys are out there because the church and religion have told you that things that make you happy and not having to work by the sweat of your brow or like be out in a field somewhere you feel guilty because you have people support you. You have that, like, trust me, I come out of the church realm. That is there. I had to get over it. So many people have to get over it. So you feel like your desires and the things that you want to do, you kind of feel like it might be selfish, right? And you feel like God's holding it back from you or whatever the case is. That's not the case, man. God, he delights in blessing you, just like a father delights in giving his kids good gifts and perfect gifts and stuff. And if we ask for a loaf of bread, God is not going to give us a rock. If we ask for a fish, he's not going to give us a serpent. If you ask God for the desires of your heart, he's not holding it over your head like a pendulum. He's not like holding it. Here it is. Try to get it. Oh, you can't get it, can you? Like, there's people feel like that. I felt like that I can't have it because I wanted it so much. That's why I say get with God. Let your pursuits be washed, clean hands and a pure heart out of right motives. Bring something to the table that's going to help people, that's beautiful. It says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, that desire is there for a reason. God gave it to you. Are you fighting against your desires and thinking that it's demonic? Because there's other scriptures that says that the heart is deceitful and wicked. Who can know it? But see, you got to understand that's old covenant. The new covenant is that he gives us his heart that screams forth, Abba, Father. That's the heart. Takes away the heart of stone and gives us a heart of flesh. That's your heart. Your heart that testifies that there is a creator, that you're one with that creator, and that creator loves you and loves to bless you. He's not holding it against you. I'm telling you, he's not dangling it above your head and messing with you. Get that out of your head. I rebuke that right now, man. God loves you. He loves to bless his children. I'm talking to somebody. He loves to bless his children. He hasn't put those desires there for a reason. They're not that those desires aren't evil. That pursuit is not evil. Keep your hands clean and your heart pure, and I guarantee you that God will work with you to make those dreams a reality. I'm telling you, man, you got one life. You got one shot. Don't sleep on it, man. It's not a pipe dream. It's there for a reason. Your greatest days are ahead of you. With that being said, I love you guys, and we'll do this again very soon. Peace and shalom. God bless.
Your way is so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.